can't find nothing on the radio.
Ready, Steve?
Welcome to Songology. He's Bruce.
He's Richard.
And this is another episode from our Song of the Day archives.
Enjoy.
Welcome back, Bruce. It's another week, but I understand we're still on our virtual tour.
Exactly. We're still deep in the South. We're still in Alabama, except we don't have banjos on our knee, I guess. Do you have a banjo on your knee?
No.
At one stage, you had a ukulele on your knee.
Well, yeah, the ukulele's on the side. Sometimes I have a cat.
I don't think that works as a song. Anyway, we have to sort of finish up Muscle Shoals, but there's more to the story. And I'm only giving you the Reader's Digest version here, but we're getting into the 70s. Now, last week we talked about the fact that there was a rift that developed between Jerry Wexler and Rick Hall that started with the fight over Aretha Franklin, literally the fight over Aretha Franklin.
Right.
In that way. And Wexler didn't really, bit of a clash of the egos between the two of them. He reluctantly sent acts down there or allowed acts to go down there. I mean, Pickett insisted because he got along really well with Rick Hall and liked the work that he did down there, as did others. And so they would request and or demand that they were going down to Muscle Shoals to work at Fame. And Wexler would have to agree, but he was not really happy about all this. So he decided that he was going to try to sort of flex his muscle and move away a bunch of his acts. Rick Hall responded by going out to L.A. and negotiating a deal with Capitol Records. And so he made a very good and long-term deal with Capitol, came back and was ready to announce to his house band, the Swampers, that, yes, we've got this great deal. This is how our future is secure, sort of thing. Well, meanwhile, Wexler has approached the Swampers on his own because, remember, he's been bringing them up from Alabama to work in New York from time to time. And so he approaches them on his own, specifically David Hood, Roger Hawkins, bass and drums, Jimmy Johnson, the guitar player, and Barry Beckett, the keyboard man, are approached by Jerry Wexler. Wouldn't you like to have your own studio? Wouldn't you like to do this on your own? You don't have to work for Hall anymore. And it came at the time when they knew that what Rick Hall was talking about paying them was still kind of union minimum. Yep. And they had already seen that, well, we can make more money doing our own thing.
Yep.
And so they agreed and made a deal. Signed a deal with Jerry Wexler where Atlantic Records provided the financing for them to acquire the equipment, the recording equipment and so forth, set up their own studio. And it happens right at the time. So Rick Hall comes back from L.A. with the Capitol deal. He calls the band together, come on up to the office here and we'll talk about what the new deal is going to be. And Roger Hawkins says that climbing the stairs to Rick's office was one of the hardest walks he ever had to take because notwithstanding his tough and hard-nosed kind of way of going about things, they all really liked and respected Rick.
Yeah.
And they knew that he had worked and fought really, really hard to keep this studio going. And so here they are, basically. Hawkins says, we're about to just pile a whole bunch of crap on this man's dreams, I feel terrible about this. But they go in and the news that, well, yes, we're going with Jerry Wexler goes over about as well as you think it would.
Uh-huh.
In fact, when Rick Hall talks about it now, even now, there's a little bit of a glint in his eye, and you can see some of that old fire, and he just says, well, it was war.
Yeah.
So Swampers rent a building at, I can even tell you the address, it's 3614 Jackson Highway in Sheffield, Alabama. And coincidentally, actually not coincidentally at all, 3614 Jackson Highway was the title of a Cher album that Cher recorded there with the Swampers.
Huh.
They started out and they kind of struggled along. I mean, Wexler helped them they bought and installed the 8-track recording machine and so forth. It was all compatible with Atlantic stuff, which is what he wanted to do. But the building was not ideal. It was an old converted commercial building. It had been partly made into a music studio, but they hadn't really done a very good job. And the building itself was old. I mean, the roof leaked, and they say that if there was a real bad thunderstorm, you had to stop working. If there was a real loud truck going by on the highway outside, you had to stop working.
Yep.
It was difficult, but they were, in a way, the Swampers were happy because, okay, well, this is their chance to do their own thing.
Yeah.
They had some initial hits with, if you remember the R.B. Greaves song, Take a Letter, Maria,
Yeah.
that comes from the Swampers, and various other things that they did. In particular, they were really struggling along because, notwithstanding that Wexler said he was going to help them out, he did help them out with the money to do it, but there wasn't a lot of work coming their way in the initial stages until one day the phone rang and the Rolling Stones were on the line.
Oh.
They had heard, even going back as far as covering Arthur Alexander's song. So the Stones came and recorded Wild Horses and Brown Sugar there. It did very well for them and also helped the Swampers along. Well, fast forward a few years to 72, because the outfit that I'm going to talk to you about now is the Staple Singers. And their song, your song of the day today, is the Staple Singers' #1 hit, I'll Take You There. Now, the Staple Singers started performing in Chicago. They were originally a gospel group. They then moved more into a folk music vein and into a kind of the protest songs sort of thing, because the civil rights movement was on at the time in the States, and they were really taken by that sort of thing. Mavis Staples, who was lead singer, she says that when they heard Martin Luther King preach, they said, hey, if he can preach this stuff, we can sing it. There's got to be a way that we can make this work. So they were a family band, actually. It was their dad, who was actually Roebuck Staples. Good name there. Sisters Cleotha and Mavis, and Yvonne, and brother Purvis. So they carried on with the sorts of folk and protest stuff that they were doing until they got hooked up with a fellow from Stax Records, again, our old friend Stax, the vice president Al Bell, who had known the Staples from years before when he was a concert promoter. He signed them to Stax Records and encouraged them to go more in an R&B and soul direction, which they did, and that's what really took the Staple Singers to success as a recording act. Now, this song, the I'll Take You There, was the first of their 2 #1 hits. It was actually written by Al Bell. He wrote it actually after attending the funeral of his younger brother. His younger brother was shot to death, and everyone was really quite shocked and depressed by that. Well, after the funeral, Al Bell went out into the backyard of his father's house. They were having this sort of after-funeral reception that people often do, and he just wanted a little bit of time on his own. He walked out into the backyard. There was this broken-down old school bus sitting back there, and so he went into the school bus and plunked himself down and was basically thinking about everything that had happened. And he says that suddenly he sort of heard this music in his head, and he heard the lyrics. I know a place, ain't nobody worried, ain't nobody crying, ain't no smiling faces lying to the races, I'll take you there. And he says he heard it as clear as a bell, and it wouldn't leave him. And yet he kept trying to write other verses, and nothing worked. It just really, so that's the song. I mean, just what I've recited for you, that's the whole song. But the really cool thing is the groove that they get going on this tune. This is one of my favorites for just the pure feel of the music. It is great stuff. Just wonderful stuff. And it has, in the course of it, you'll hear Mavis Staples talk to the musicians. She says Barry, referring to Barry Beckett. She says David and Little David. She's referring to David Hood, the bass player. Also, what I can tell you about this song is there is a strong reggae undertone to it, though it doesn't really sound like reggae. The reggae comes from the fact that, well, 2 things. Number one, Pop Staples had brought in a song that he didn't identify what it was. He brought in this particular record, and it was a sort of an acetate record, the sort of disc that they used to cut as temporary demos.
Yeah.
In those old days. Well, he produces one of those. He plays it, says, can you make it sort of something like this? And, of course, this one, oh, yeah, we can do that. No worries there. Well, what it was actually a Jamaican reggae piece called The Liquidator. And if you dig up The Liquidator off of the internet, you'll hear the similar elements to it. It's an instrumental piece. But, of course, the Swampers had no idea that this was an actual piece of music. They thought it was a demo from somewhere before. But they were attuned to the reggae influence because they had just cut off a tour. Not only did the Rolling Stones come from the UK, but Steve Winwood brought his band Traffic over, and he had recorded in Muscle Shoals. They'd had such fun working together that Winwood invited the Swampers out on the road with them. And they had been touring with Steve Winwood, backing Steve Winwood at Traffic. And Winwood at the time was quite into the reggae music that was coming, just really starting to emerge from Jamaica at the time. So that's sort of what contributed to the feel of this whole thing. So let us listen to the Staple Singers, and I'll take you there.
And as usual, I have to stop it right there due to the wonderful world of fair use rules. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. You can visit us on Facebook or head over to our website, songology.ca. Now, here's your chance to listen to the music or go on to the next episode.